Welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. Your hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys. Hello and welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. I'm PVSB, your co-host. When I'm not on this podcast talking to this audience, I serve as head of industry and client engagement at Flywheel, the e-commerce accelerator division of Omnicom. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and co-founder. He is the chief revenue officer at Think Blue Consulting. He's also the patriarch of the Raj family media empire. And most recently, he was the chief customer officer at General Mills. Of course, I'm talking about my BFF, the man from LA, the guy known as Shri. Shri, hey, great to have you here today. We got a special episode, don't we?
Indeed, Peter. Gorgeous sunny afternoon in California. We just got back from CAGNY. And, it was great to spend 48 physical hours sitting through presentations from some of the largest market cap brands in the world. And here we are. Let's summarize and tell our audience what we really learned. Although a reminder that we did put out a lot of individual company summaries, day summaries. So there's a lot of content and links to every single presentation. One of them used a video. So unfortunately, we can't give you that presentation, but Peter meticulously took screen captures for you. So we got a lot of content.
Yeah, we did. A couple things I'll say. We're going to have they'll have a link to the drive where all of the CAGNY presentations we were able to collect, single place. We'll put that in the digital liner notes of this episode. But couple of points about the venue and everything. So it was in Orlando. For years, it's been at a resort in Boca Raton. They moved the venue this year. I think there was a lot of push from the analysts who typically bring their families. It's scheduled to coincide with the spring break week for all the private schools in New York. So they generally bring their families. And I think they liked Orlando as a better venue. So they moved it to a lovely hotel, the Hilton Signia Bonnet Creek, which was adjacent to the Waldorf Astoria, but it had a lovely conference facility in the hotel. And I will just say this, in years past, I've been a couple times. I noticed that, I was kind of incognito. I think the last time I went, the only people that knew me were our friends Nick Modi and Jason English, who's since left Goldman Sachs. But this time, a lot of people came up to us, came back to where we were in the media section, recognized us. I remember one time you and I were talking in front of the PepsiCo section where they had all sorts of giveaways, and a young gentleman walked by us 3 times before he built up the nerve to actually introduce himself to us.
I actually heard him say to his colleague, "Hey, they're the CPG guys. Should we talk to him?"
I know. So we're even permeating the world of analysts and equity evaluation. It was a beautiful venue. We were kind of incognito. They put the media at the very back of the room, they couldn't have put us any further away from the stage in that room.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that, Peter. And I'll tell you why, though. I like that media was clustered together. First of all, there was hardly any media. There were 6 or 8 of us. For both you and I to be there among 6 or 7 others, I feel honored and privileged that we could make it out and listen to CEOs and the senior leaders speaking. So let's acknowledge that. But I like that media was clustered together because we made some new friends.
One in particular, I'll give a shout out to Laura Cooper with the Wall Street Journal. You and I are going to be able to see her in New York in a couple of weeks when we're at Cornell. So there'll be a lot of opportunities, but a really good group of people. Everyone was very nice. Made friends with some of the analysts and new people, mostly clustered around the big spread of giveaways from Mondelez when they came to present. Boy, was that crazy, wasn't it, Shri?
So, Mr. Bond, are we going to see stuff between Wall Street Journal and the CPG Guys, or the CPG Guys and Wall Street Journal?
Far.
Don't answer that question.
Surprise,
but yeah, that Mondelez spread and then the Hershey's one the next day. I think Mondelez was a larger scale one than the Hershey's one because they had all the international products. And man, there was a mad rush for it. This was my first visit to CAGNY, attending as a media person. I'd never seen this mad rush before. And boy, it was impressive, but it was also a little bit of a human stampede to get candy. But it was fun and kind of overwhelming to see at the same time. What would you say?
I think it was a little crazy, Shri. It was interesting for me. There were some companies that weren't there that were kind of notable. That was my first reaction, right? Like I didn't see Campbell's and I didn't see Unilever. Now, I know that Unilever has scheduled a lunch in New York for all the analysts, many companies that don't present. And obviously this year, a very regular presenter was Kellanova. And their previous cereal division, WK Kellogg, did present, but obviously Kellanova is in the process of being acquired by Mars. So they didn't appear. What was interesting is, did see some Mars people in the room. They were there to listen to all the publicly traded companies talk about themselves, but as they're privately owned, they don't have to show up there. Very
right, because they're not a stock publicly traded that Wall Street is tracking and going through quarterly earnings conversations that creates excitement for, the pension funds or ETFs.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And one thing we did get to do, we'll drop a little spoiler here, an Easter egg, so to speak. We were able to record a conversation with our friend Nick Modi, and he was very candid about what he liked and what he didn't like about the content that was being shared on stage. And the spoiler is, it was more not like. There was a lot left to be desired from his perspective.
So wait, Peter, you're saying there's another episode coming from a Wall Street person
Apparently,
from Royal Bank of Canada?
Yeah.
All right. You created some anticipation here for our listeners here that you get the CPG Guys version of the conference here, but you're going to get the Wall Street version of the conference in like TBD very soon.
Yep.
We'll tell you. All right. Let's move this along, Peter. So let's talk about the overall conference itself, and how would you grade it? To me, you've already started getting into it, but my hat's off to Wall Street community for actually doing this annually. When you're not on the presentation side and you're watching these presentations, the discipline, the timeliness, the type of stuff that's asked for in templates, and just the overall comfort, food, everything, A+++++. Congratulations, CAGNY. You throw one heck of a conference. Thoughts?
I would agree with you on all but one aspect. And this is just the nature of the business. CAGNY gets a lot of the presenters to sponsor meals and breaks. And sometimes the meals that are sponsored by food companies, the only food they serve are the food that they manufacture. So we're at a very high-end resort and we're eating, packaged food. So that would be my only downside. As to the organization, how they scheduled it, the synchronized swimming of the whole process, Shri, it was awesome. It was a great event. I mean, hats off to CAGNY and Weston, the company that organized everything. They put on a great event. I have no real complaints. My picayune approach to the food is more because, I'm down at a beautiful resort and I'd like to have, a lobster Benedict, and that just isn't what I got. So I'm okay with that. It's the nature of the business, but really good event, Shri.
Yep, absolutely, Peter. And so A+ for that, but let's give an overall grade for the quality of the presentations we saw. And I'm not asking you, Peter, did people come prepared? Was the actual presentation and the beauty of the presentation great? Were there videos? Were there, ads shown? I'm asking you the output sitting in those decks that we made public. The pageantry was fabulous. I can't say no. But the output in each one of those decks for where the industry is, how many times in this episode, in this podcast or on the CPG Guys via LinkedIn have we said the industry shock, surprise, right? Industry is going through a volume growth challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel the industry addressed it?
Few and far between, Shri. I can count. There were 30 presentations, right? I can count on one hand and still have a couple fingers left over. How many addressed the elephants in the room? Volume, private label, and growth. It's just
media optimization would be the other one. Retail media is a piece of that.
One presentation referenced retail media.
And for that, Peter, the grade I would give overall for this would be at best underwhelming. Your thoughts, please?
Yeah, I was displeased with the lack of transparency. They all seem to be focused on convincing the analysts that they were going to hit their quarterly numbers. And I don't know if that is necessarily the right thing to be doing right now. And we'll get more into that with our conversation with Nick. But I think that they didn't address how they were going to do it. They seemed incredibly focused on the power of their brands more than anything.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a second. Right? So volume challenges, and again, maybe this is I'm not counting, but who's counting, but maybe this is the 50th time on this show that I'm referring to. It was around late March 2023 that volume challenges started. No genius Einstein discussion here. SNAP dried up, EBT dried up, and so did a lot of the government assistance check that hung around from COVID days. You put all that into the mix and you have inflation, pricing related inflation. Obviously, there was a volume growth. To be fair, Peter, brands have had 2 years. We're nearly 2 years into that cycle. So my humble anticipation being a practitioner was we'll get to see strategies of what brands are going to do to at least take it head on. And what I saw was I have very strong brands and I'm going to lean back on them.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, that was kind of the impression that I got from a lot of the presentations, that all they talked about were their brands and their innovation, and that will carry them into the future. And I don't think.
But even innovation, I'm going to say it's a passing grade. I'm not going to say it was underwhelming. It was a passing grade. I saw a lot of line extensions.
Oh, sure.
Some had a little bit of adjacency type. Hey, I'm going to evolve into this aisle, something new, a new form, new packaging. But in an industry, again, which is struggling on volume growth, if innovation is one of the biggest aspects you're going to lean in, we'd want to see something epic.
Shri, the other thing that was lacking in almost every presentation was a recognition of the impact that GLP-1s was going to have on food manufacturing. And
so Peter, we had you and I walked in expecting to see on the food, and I would say beverages as well, because of the sugar aspect.
Yeah.
How brands are dealing with or working with GLP-1, and why you and I walked in with that is brand after brand after brand in their quarterly earnings releases, when Wall Street analysts were asking them questions prior to, were saying, hey, GLP-1 is actually getting in the way of progress here from a volume growth perspective. But here at the conference, nobody addressed it. But to my surprise, when we talked to analysts, what they said to us is the repeat rate on GLP-1 is so low that it's a one and done for most people because of the cost of GLP-1.
30%.
Low repeat rate, right? 30%. So yeah, of course, 30% is still making some change in categories, maybe 50 basis points in food and beverage categories. I just don't know the number, but whatever it is, it's a minor dent, and that's why brands didn't address it. But yet, leading up to this, brands have been saying that's the reason why their volume is slowing down.
So you can't say it's the reason.
What's clear to me,
you can't say it's the reason and then not address it. And say, no, it isn't.
Yes.
What is it? Is it or isn't
it? Or maybe brands have tricks up their sleeve how they're going to address it and didn't want to share it with others. But My hats off to
Yeah, they were
ConAgra.
the best.
In particular, Bob Nolan's presentation was absolutely fabulous.
Kudos to Bob
And
Nolan.
if I remember correctly,
He was one of, there were only a handful of companies that had people other than the CEO or CFO on stage. ConAgra was one of them. Bob Nolan took them through an incredible story filled with insights and outcomes. And I thought it was very, very impressive. I know you did too.
Peter, I won't even blink. It was absolutely fabulous. But on the GLP-1 aspect, in new innovation in certain select categories, maybe it was frozen. I can't recall, Peter, but it's in our notes. ConAgra is actually going to put a badge that says GLP-1 friendly or not, which I think is very progressive.
It's important because in order for GLP-1s to be effective, you have to be consuming a high protein diet. And that's what they're doing. They're basically saying it's not just about the drug. It's the drug in combination with the diet that will have the maximum effect. And so they're leaning into it. I heard a couple of references, but then I heard one manufacturer come out and not even talk about it and then say one of their major innovations was they were just going to glaze things that brands they already had. They were going to just add a glaze. Like that seemed to be, I don't know, tone deaf maybe?
I don't even know what to say, Peter. But here's what I do, because I didn't walk out of there, we didn't walk out of there. Our discussion with Wall Street analysts yielded the same answers, kind of. And then we will be putting out this episode with the RBC analyst, Nick Modi, soon. The general consensus opinion walking out of there was brands didn't give a clear picture on how to return to volume growth. But this is an open invitation to brands. If you want to come here, we speak to retail as well. You're not speaking to Wall Street here. If you want to come and talk to retail, which is a half our audience here, you're welcome to come here and share what your plan to growth is. You're more than welcome. You can keep it as generic as you want to. We welcome it. We'd love to have that discussion with you because the industry needs you.
I want to add a couple more thoughts, and I'm just going to be very honest about this. They used a lot of the CEOs used buzzwords on stage that you and I looked at each other and we knew that if we asked them a question on, if they used the term price pack architecture, most of them could not articulate what it was.
Before you get into scientific terms in our industry, I want to talk about artificial intelligence.
No, we're going to do that. I mean, everybody used AI. It was the buzzword.
But Peter, AI was in almost every presentation, but it looked
did, and I don't think
in a slide where it was hard for me to comprehend. Is that the best use of AI? To me, in our industry, AI is already in supply chain. Fabulous. Most people have caught up. AI has been around forever, and people are using it. It's just it hasn't been showcased with senior management, but chief supply chain officers have been working with it for a while. It's starting to gradually move into marketing, but to me, our industry loosely still uses the word AI just to be cool in front of them. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Just to look cool in front of Gen Z and millennials. And this morning, Peter,
I read your post. I loved your post.
I had to make a post.
You called it out.
Here are the basics. Let Gen Z, millennials, and chief supply chain officers and CIOs and CTOs figure out the best application in marketing. Solve the volume crisis. That's where senior leadership needs to put that in. And perhaps AI may even help you with suggestions.
There was one other thing.
Sorry, Peter. It was
that's all right. You can rant. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, which was the projections and the forecast, right? The guidance. The guidance was pretty slim.
Wait. You saw
there was some guidance, and it was pretty slim.
Out of 30, how many did you see guidance?
I actually saw guidance about half.
Slightly more than half.
There was one company that came and completely avoided it, said, oh, you'll get that at our next quarter. The analysts really groused about that. They were not happy that this company showed up without any guidance changes, knowing full well that it's not going to be good news when they hit.
Listen. Each company has a right to decide what it wants to share and doesn't want to share. Let's start at that basic.
If you're not going to do this particular company had just really didn't do anything. They didn't talk about any of the capabilities. They didn't address the volume issue. It was like, why come? Why come? Yeah, you've been here every year forever.
I don't know, because you made a commitment. Like
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
don't
what to
know.
tell you. But here, hold on, though. I want to get back to that, right? Every company has a right to showcase or not showcase whatever it wants, right? It's a conference. It's up to the company. But Wall Street walks in. Listen, man, we're also reflecting what analysts told us as media, right? We don't make this stuff up. You're going to come to CAGNY. The number one thing they want from you is an outlook,
Guidance.
guidance. And then the how you get there, which is less important than what is your guidance, right? That's all. We're only reflecting what we were told by analysts, and we were fortunate to talk to analysts in the first place. So I want to go back to those that actually declared dividend increases. I do want to say congratulations, because in an aura of slower volume, negative volume, if you figured out how to take more cost out, I'm going to give you a muted applause, but it's still an applause.
Yeah, there is also another elephant in the room there, Shri, is that we see these companies that say their volume is not going to increase much at all, but they're going to hit their EBITDA goals. And so the math doesn't work. The math doesn't work.
It does if you take cost out of the system, to be clear.
So that's the elephant in the room. How do you take cost out of the system? And we talked to a couple analysts, and what we heard was, the layoffs have already been coming and they're just going to keep going. That's how they're going to take costs out of the system. Because if you can't raise your price, because the delta with private label is already pretty significant, right? And you're not growing your business. The only way to take cost out of the system, that is the biggest variable, right?
So what I'd very softly contend with Peter here is, normally we could have said, hey, supply chain is always an area to look for savings. Except over COVID, everyone has sharpened their pencil, right, over the last, and most said my supply chain is super efficient, so there's probably not a lot left there. IT is not always an area you can dig, but many are completing their massive 15-year-long ERP projects, which makes it fairly complicated to pull money out of IT. Maybe there's a little bit to claw there. Your largest line items then are people, your trade spend, which not a lot spoke about, because in an aura of slow volume, you got to go back to frequency of trade spends. Nothing to cut there, or maybe there's some non-working dollars. But wait a minute, Peter. Does the visibility exist for leadership to get to the non-working dollars on an account level basis? And the answer to that question is, unless you're DST, do you have the discipline to go there and focus? Having come from a selling role myself for large parts of my life, I know all too well that that's not a conversation that's had within a CPG. But you got to go there. The other one, Peter, is media. But wait a minute, Peter. Everyone said I'm adding more dollars to media. So I fear you may be right, Peter. It's like silent layoffs, but I just don't know any better.
We'll see how the year goes on, but that's what's going through my head. The media issue is interesting. So literally only one of the 30 presentations mentioned retail media and talking about it. Hats off to Colgate-Palmolive, our friends there, for actually tackling,
Indeed,
showing how their media is growing, specifically talking about retail media as a mechanism to drive performance marketing and make it very measurable. They leaned in. I didn't see anybody else do that. And that's a big issue because, with retail media, you and I know this, that for every dollar that's spent, 77 cents goes to the guys in Seattle, another 7 to Northwest Arkansas, and then the other 100 or so retail media networks are fighting over 16%. And most of that is coming from the trade line, Shri. So back to your point on trade optimization, they're not seeing great ROI on most of those RMNs. We just saw a study by a survey by the Path to Purchase Institute, and most of the brands said overwhelmingly that tail of RMNs isn't delivering the value that they promised.
I do want to discuss that for a minute, Peter. So I was anticipating that I would see some details around media spend, retail media. Then I start looking at what percent of your overall media spend is retail media? Most will say about 20 to 40%. So it's a fairly large size. But in this big scheme of optimization, are CEOs and CFOs responsible for speaking about retail media? Not really. Other than Peter, hold on, Peter. Most brands will tell you publicly or in private settings with agencies, with RMNs, hey, I need to pull back. I'm not sure I get value out of it. I want to make sure it's optimized. I don't know what metrics are the best ones. Everyone's got a different metric on the retail side. So technically, senior most leadership needs to weigh in and make judgments as well as decide, am I going to increase, decrease, and give guidance to one level
I
down.
would. Shri, I want to say this, and I want your opinion on it. What stood out to me in terms of beyond the brands and the innovation that they showcased was how they presented their marketing. And universally, the focus that they showcased at this event were linear television ads. They were linear. That was their primary mechanism. There are a couple ones that would show a static image, but they weren't showcasing anything that wasn't about, Super Bowl ad, mass audience, linear television. I mean, for the CMOs to do that, it gets back to the issue that you talk about, Shri, which is, if you're a CMO and you don't understand how to use retail media, you're not leaning in to understand TikTok, you don't understand how to do streaming, all of that, then you're doing a disservice to building your brand equity. And all I saw there was great 20th century advertising techniques. Unfortunately, we're in the 21st century, so that gives a little bit of a problem.
In the words of a great Wall Street analyst, marketing today, selling today is moving on to becoming slowly and steadily peer-to-peer.
Yeah, they want their 1%.
The challenge for most, and DST is better at this, but for warehouse brands, it's largely been about B2B and about volume shipped to a retailer with difficulty to get to the ultimate consumer data. Retail media has unlocked that in many ways, but it's only consumer data around retail media spends. And I think the true and tried tactics of yesteryears and what has been taught in schools, in education, that's what brands, CMOs, it's easy to gravitate to. I'm going to say agencies, you own this as much as brands, or you own it even more than brands. Agencies, you need to carry brands as hands through this journey of optimized media. And you heard it here first, 95% digital.
Yeah, the only one that really showcased that in a major way was Elf. Elf Beauty, hats off to our friends, Ekta Chopra and her CMO colleague, Corey. They had, first of all, they didn't have a presentation, a slide deck. They had a video playing behind them. And they were showcasing a lot of their disruptive strategies. They said they put out 12 campaigns a year, whereas major brands can only do 2. They are very focused on leveraging social, leveraging influencers, sports enthusiasts, celebrities, all sorts of stuff. And they're just being incredibly disruptive, and they are growing their business. They showed how they were the only major cosmetics brand to actually grow volume last year. The others all saw volume declines like the rest of the industry. Very interesting.
Absolutely, Peter. Yeah, absolutely, Peter. Now, I'd generally say in the HABA health and beauty category, J&J, or Kenvue rather, did an excellent job. I would say absolutely excellent job in showcasing their capabilities. I thought it was
and
absolutely
the way they did
fabulous.
It, Shri, it wasn't with big detailed slides. They talked.
Yeah.
They had very evocative slides, mostly of people and families, but it wasn't a whole lot of, but they clearly knew their stuff because how they talked about it was not superficial. It was very detailed on targeting, on building relationships, on creating solutions for families. It was really, really a good presentation. It was so understated based upon the content they put on the screen, but so over delivered in what they talked about at the microphone.
Hats off to Thibaut and the CMO of CanView for being there. You did so much with so little on those slides that listening to the conversation was just, it was like a, how do you word this, Peter? Like a sound for soul ears?
No, it absolutely, it was music. It was music to my ears. It was soulful. Music it was almost soulful
to our ears.
From a CPG perspective. It was as soulful as CPG gets. How about that?
Yeah, they talked about everything from analytics capabilities, use of AI in a meaningful way within those analytics
not
capabilities.
Not just a buzzword of blah, blah, blah AI. They actually discuss some very concrete applications.
The use of AI in media, straightforward. The use of AI in science, absolutely fabulous. With
they talked about their agency consolidation and what was behind that and what kind of value that delivered back to the shareholder. I mean, they were very thoughtful in the words that they chose. There were a lot of people that went up to brag about their brands, or frankly, there were one or two where they were just bragging about themselves. CanView, very thoughtful, every word they chose. I was very impressed.
Yep, well done, Ken. We really enjoyed that presentation. Also, I just want you to take a minute, Peter, since we are on the retail media topic. Remind our audience what we're doing in May.
So Sheree and I have partnered with the Exec Ed program at the Johnson School of Business at Cornell University, and we are hosting a 4-day in-person seminar in New York City. It's actually a certificate program, so you get a executive ed certificate from Cornell University. But what we're trying to do is bring together leading luminaries from the retail media ecosystems, brands, retailers, some service providers, intermediaries. And our goal is to level set what retail media is, how a brand budgets for it, how a retailer offers solutions that are meaningful, how it is measured, and underpinning this, Sri, is the fact that, to some degree, the balance of power between brands and retailers has shifted over the last couple of years. It had been decidedly in the hands of the retailers for 75 years because they held all the cards, the points of distribution. But in the world of e-commerce and omnichannel, marketplaces crave assortment. Brands, I just want to finish this. Brands control assortment. They control the how they're going to approach price pack architecture from marketplace to marketplace. But the other thing they have is they are not the one that is selling now. They are also an economic buyer. And what they're buying is retail media. And why is retail media so desired by retailers? Because the margins are so much better than selling stuff through their stores. So they now have a decision to make about whether they want to invest their brand dollars in retail media. And so things are changing. It is a very dynamic ecosystem between brands and retailers right now.
Completely agree. Could not agree more on that aspect, Peter, whatsoever, that it is a dynamic system. You called out marketplace, and I don't want to miss the moment because another interesting development in the last 72 hours was Walmart made its quarterly earnings release. And I was not expecting the CEO of Walmart Global, Doug McMillon, to talk to. They're going to introduce, can carry up to 1 million SKUs. Yeah. Was it 1 million SKUs, Peter, in the Walmart third-party marketplace? In my wildest dreams, when I started working in the e-commerce sector about a decade ago, I would have never forecasted Walmart will embrace digital technology, omni-channel, retail media, follow the consumer 365 24/7. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So big figures. They recorded that their US e-commerce sales were up 20% year over year. Wow. Big number. Marketplace delivered 34% sales growth, 6 consecutive quarters, right? Global e-commerce rose 16%. Global advertising grew 29%. Wow, Shri, that is a big number. US.
And I think roughly, Peter, I can't remember the exact rates on an annualized basis. That's a $4 billion line item. So if it's growing 30, 40%, those are all large numbers.
Walmart Plus, their subscription membership, they're comparable to Amazon Prime, doubled over the last year, right? Or pardon me, not true. Sorry. They saw double-digit growth. I'm sorry, I misquoted there. They did not double it, but it is huge. Sam's Club even saw a 24% uptick. You know, our friends Diana Marshall, who's got an upcoming episode on the CPG Guys, and our dear friend Harvey Ma, really driving some things there. You know, there are some things that, you know, if you're a brand or you're an agency, you need to understand that retail media is a major growth lever for Walmart's e-commerce momentum, right? And that's where if you're a brand and you're thinking about where you want to invest your media dollars, Walmart's a pretty good place to do it because they're seeing really big growth, Sri.
On the other hand, can I hit up elephant in the room, gorilla in the room, 500-pound gorilla, all my favorite words from previous corporate roles? If Walmart is leaning in on the third-party marketplace, and you're a large market cap brand, which is traditionally 30%, 40%, whatever of your volume has come from Walmart, should you be worried? Or let me flip the question another way. Should you be looking to enter the third-party marketplace or understand the Walmart third-party marketplace inside out?
I would say yes, and here's why. Because you've heard me predict this on the podcast recently. And it was something that Duncan Painter, the CEO of Flywheel, said in a very senior level meeting that I was at, and I agree with him. I believe in the next 5 years, Amazon will exit 1P and will be a 3P marketplace exclusively, because they don't make their money. So they brought inventory in 1P because they wanted to control the pricing and be very competitive with Walmart. The fact of the matter is, they're big enough now in scale that they don't need to be buying and warehousing product. They will move to marketplace. So if you're facing that fact, you better be into Walmart's marketplace. Yeah, they'll still take stuff into the store, but the marketplace is going to be a bigger component of Walmart's business in the long run, just as Amazon is now already bigger in 3P than it is in 1P, and it will consume all the 1P and move it into 3P.
I gotta say, Peter, is some of your thinking on, some of what you said about, hey, Walmart likely or Amazon likely leaning on the third party marketplace coming from the grocery business at Amazon is largely still being figured out, and there's been volatility in management, new change. So I do want to share with the audience, coming soon, an episode. Jordan Burke, ex-Walmart International, kind of one of those who was in the startup family for Walmart International up in China, launched their business there. And I had a chance to go to the Amazon Fresh grocery store, which was like day one grocery store for Amazon Fresh, the number one store up in Woodland Hills, California. We actually did a full shopping trip, and we gave our overall assessment of how it is, from category management to strength of assortment to display opportunities, retail media and store opportunities. That episode is coming soon as well, very shortly. So look forward to that, on where Amazon's progress with fresh and frozen and a true physical grocery store format is. But Peter, if I will tell you, Peter, if I was working in a commercial sales role in corporate America for a large market cap brand, for the first time, I will challenge my Walmart team and say, hey, what do you know about the third-party marketplace? At least seek to learn more. Whether I choose to put 20 things there or not, still debatable after I learn, but I'll tell you, Peter, it's a viable alternative for long tail with scale. And remember, Peter, in our industry, year one innovation doesn't even cross 5 million, 7 million, 10 million in sales for the most part. If long tail and Walmart can, via third party marketplace, can sustain $10 million in sale for a given SKU over a year,
Sure it is.
it's born a new life. You might not have to discontinue
No, I
or
agree
demand
with
and
you.
destroy.
And that means you not only have to consider the marketplace as the mechanism, you also have to heavily invest in the tools that will ensure the product gets the attention and trial right out of the gate. That means, your old term,
Retail media
scanner,
as well,
right?
content.
Search, content, assortment, navigation, ratings, and reviews. All of those mechanisms are going to help your 3P items. But, remember the big number they threw out there, right? The 1 million items. Remember that there are a lot of those items that third-party sellers are selling items that are already sold via Walmart 1P from the brands, right? They have not done as comprehensive a job the way the Amazon experience is, where the buy box, right, is typically but 1 by 1P, but there are other sellers. They have different PDPs for third-party sellers. So
Yes,
Walmart
sir.
is still a little bit messy in terms of its duplication. They do need to clean that up.
All right, Peter. So we've said quite a bit on the show here. We were lucky again to be with the Wall Street analysts, go to CAGNY, listen to outlooks, etc. We opened up saying, hey, little underwhelming, the overall grade from the quality of the presentations we saw. There were some
really
that
good.
were absolutely outstanding. Here on the CPG Guys, we try not to take names and call out specific brands, but overall grade and quality of the presentations, I got to tell you, I was underwhelmed. I walked in hoping to see this big, maybe it was wrong on my part in the first place, and I'll acknowledge that may be the case. I was hoping to walk in and see this aha moment from every single presenter and brand that said, here's how I'm taking volume challenges head on. Here are the 3 things I'm going to do. You don't have to give away your secrets. High level, 3 actions. And I just didn't see it across the board. I only saw it from
improvement
a few.
is the most generous description I can give, Shri.
Yeah, Peter. So I'll wrap it up by saying 2 years into volume challenges, what are we doing as brands? By now we should have answers, or at least a path to answers. And let's wrap it up with that.
Shri,
close it out, Peter.
What I love most is you and me just getting together, going down to Orlando. The best part, and we saved the best for last. I'm going to talk about
We
it.
didn't say it. Mention, go for it.
Your friend Joey got together with us, and we called an audible on Tuesday night. We heard that the SpaceX rocket was lifting off from Cape Canaveral that evening, and we decided to hop in the rental car, drive our way out to Cape Canaveral. It was about an hour drive from Orlando, pulled off on the very last exit before the bridge, looped under, found a place right on the water with a perfect view, and we got to see a rocket launch. Isn't that cool? Bucket list moment, Shri. Bucket list moment.
I had never done that before, and all the videos we put out cannot do justice to what the eyes saw, especially as it went into the sky, got lost in the clouds, and then maybe 60 seconds later to see it again in the sky, just jet past us at a speed I cannot even describe. I've never, true bucket list moment.
We went to this Total Dive pizzeria in Cocoa. Not Cocoa Beach, mainland Cocoa. But it was you know what? It was a great experience because me and Joey scarfed that down, and it was a fun time. I'll also say I loved raiding the Mondelez table with you, Shri. I was carrying back one of the heaviest bags full of all sorts of. She did. She loved it.
I hope Nadia loved what she got.
The egg. I have not opened the egg yet.
How was the egg? Was the egg open?
That has not been authorized quite yet. Exactly. There's already enough going on with
authorization
stuff, but
awesome.
To me, it was about the connections we made. Not only just what we heard, but the connections we made. It's definitely an event that most people in our industry don't really think about going to, but what a great opportunity it was for us to be there.
Peter, I want to speak about that for 1 second, if it's okay, Peter. I know I've said wrap up, and here I am just stretching this episode out, but As an employee that has come up the ranks in the CPG industry, CAGNY was always this mystical moment and aura where only senior most leadership would go, and there'd be so much stress for 30 days around that. I'm not talking about
Yeah,
one
no, of
company I
course.
worked for. It's been that way historically. I just felt like another person attending CAGNY. The tables were kind of turned, and I'm like, my gosh, all the stress.
Yeah,
What are we
yeah,
doing?
yeah.
We're all
I
humans
agree.
at the end of the
It
day.
was interesting because you said only the most senior leaders. It was great because there were a lot, the CEO and CFO came in, presented, and left. But probably one level down from most of them, there were a handful of people that stayed and sat in the back of the room and listened to their competitors speak. It is, and I will say this, you can download the presentations. You can listen to the presentation streaming online, but there really is nothing like being in the room. It's the room where it happens, Sri. Room where it happens.
Couldn't agree more. The room where it happens. Isn't that from
written
a
by a
famous
Wesleyan
show?
alum, no less.
Hamilton.
Yeah. So, Sri, thanks again for doing this episode with me. Thanks for making the trip down to Florida. I know we've got a couple more.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you to CAGNY.
Thank you to
so
CAGNY for
grateful.
having
What
us.
a great experience. Look for the episode with our friend Nick Modi. It's coming up very soon, Sri. And thank you as always for joining me. To our audience, 35,000 followers on LinkedIn. If you're not one of them, follow us on LinkedIn. And also go to your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, whatever it is, and make sure you're both following us. And please scroll down and just click the star rating. It helps feed the algorithm, makes us more findable. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up in short order. Lots of great guests. Women's Month is coming up, Sri. Wow, that's going to be a great month. We've got some crackerjack guests coming on board. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you as always. And to our audience, we look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Goodbye. The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.